Okay. And here's the in between time where I don't know if we're streaming or not.
I didn't hear that. I heard Northwind was going to be at our booth. What did you hear?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Frog God is folding up.
I'm
What?
taking bids.
Necromancer is taking over? Oh, I'm sorry. We probably weren't supposed to say that on air. Hello, everybody.
Greetings, goddammit. Goddammit,
It's
Jeff
it's
Talanian.
Skeeter,
Goddammit, Jim
Zach,
Wampler.
Jeff, and Jim. Today on Goddammit, Zach, we are straying slightly from our normal chaos, and we are going to do an episode of our small publishing seminar. Hello, Ed Bickford. Thank you for telling me we are streaming. Sometimes it's hard to know.
No, guys like them are heroes. He's a real hero here.
This
So,
is Goddammit Zach. I am Skeeter Green. I am the one who does all the behind the scenes stuff. To my left or
side.
right is the talent, Zach Glazer, who just sits there and smokes and shows up 5 minutes
That's what
before we
sages
go on.
do. That's what sages do.
Uh, Today we're doing the small publisher seminar with small publishers Jeff Talanian of Northwind Adventures and Hyperborea, and I'm not going to try to even say the name. Go do it, Jeff. The astonishing, because I
No,
always
it's just
screw it up.
Hyperborea.
Astonishing
Well, we've
Swordsmen and
shortened.
Sorcerers of.
Yes, astonishing swordsmen and sorcerers of Hyperborea. But lately we've been calling it Hyperborea for short because it's less of a tongue twister.
It is terrible for me because I am a non-native Terran speaker. I speak a completely different
Speak
and
Snake Man.
the space wizard himself, Jim Wampler of Mud Puppy Games. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
You can always
Glad-
tell when Jim is on the show because he brings the magnificent beard. Plus
Wizard
5.
beard. No, the
Yes.
wizard beard is always a sign. I bring
Well, you
hair
know
out
how
my
like
head.
they
That's my
say
job.
if you get a pet, you and the pet will eventually begin to resemble each other. Well, all I've been doing is hanging out with Tim Kask. So
I wasn't going to say it. I really
I
wasn't.
know. None of us are
But-
going to say it, but pretty soon.
I couldn't bring myself to tell you, but I think osmosis has finally happened, and it's not a bad thing. See, if it was a bad thing, I couldn't even say it now, but it's not a bad thing.
the
Bulette.
sweet spot is
Bulette.
exactly
It's called
halfway
Bulette.
between a wizard beard and a post-apocalyptic survivor beard.
Nice. I just can't wait until Jim just unconsciously can't control himself and says "fuck you, skater" in the old man voice that we know that comes from Tim Kask. I love it when he does that. So anyway,
You're not.
now
You're,
that, now
you're
that
nobody.
we've gone,
You're nobody till you get the FU from Tim Cass. That's the first day you know that. Hey man, you got a future here. He'll do it for cheap.
you're going to make
I mean,
something of
between
yourself, kid.
guys like me and Tim, that's how you know you're friends. It's when you start
Exactly.
getting those.
So now that we have gone well off course, I'm going to try to rein everybody back in. Zach and I have been doing a number of small publisher seminars, especially in the pandemic times when we could only do virtual cons, and they've been very well received, which is, very cool and kind of amazing. Um, and they have been so well received that other contemporaries and people that I, as a very small publisher, look up to, Jeff and Jim, have asked and requested and sometimes even forced me to allow them on the show. So we're one of the questions that gets brought up quite a bit is regarding Kickstarter. And Kickstarter has become synonymous. That's the go to name. Just like when you're talking about soda, everybody says, oh, I'm going to grab a Coke. So Kickstarter is the Coke of crowdfunding.
Correct.
There are a number of other crowdfunding sites. They're all quite a bit scaled down from Kickstarter. Kickstarter is huge. Zach can speak directly to Indiegogo through his connections on Necromancer Games, which uses Indiegogo to do a lot of smaller runs of titles that doesn't always make sense to do a Kickstarter for. And that'll be something we'll kind of. I was
You know
just
what we-
looking at the chat.
Just let me know if you actually when you want a full explanation, because I can tell you right now there are advantages to Indiegogo that are huge. But the biggest disadvantage is exactly what you expect. It's the traffic. But honestly, Indiegogo, they don't charge much. They allow you to keep on once you have funded and finished until you hit fulfilled. You could keep taking money there like a pre-order. So those are kind of huge.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to keep you want a kind of an intimate audience that doesn't have as much in Kickstarter, you get lost. There are so many projects that people just browsing, the chance to come across even a big project like Jeff's or Necropolis for us. I mean, there's just so much going on. Whereas there's advantages to being a much better put together and organized and focused project on something like Indiegogo, I think.
Yeah, it's almost Indiegogo. I kind of look at it almost like Kickstarter and BackerKit fused into one little neat package.
Yeah, it is for simple projects, which is why we do simple projects on them. I mean, the whole design that we did to make Indiegogos was to make short books.
I did my first one.
Did you?
I did. About 6 months ago. I was just doing a hoodie for that was a cover that was really well loved by a lot of Hyperborea fans, and so we did a hoodie for the cover, and it went really well for the trying out Indiegogo for the first time. I was a little skeptical at first, but I saw you guys doing it regularly, and I was kind of curious as to why the separation. But I guess it makes sense, your explanation.
Well, that's part of the separation. Part of the separation also, I mean, once you get to a certain size, you're not a one project at a time company. And that's not true of most small publishers in the beginning. But you can have lots of things at different pieces of being done, and one man's focus or a woman's focus. Well, my wife focused on everything at once, but okay, this man's focus doesn't have to be on one thing from beginning to end, because we have people that work on things because they are, Mark's in charge of Necropolis and we're having Jeff in charge of whatever, right? But with this, we're able to have multiple channels that we can sell through. And as long as you run it, I think if you have a similar type product every time, and you run a very similar type crowdfunder, as long as it's successful, you will grow the people for what they expect.
Yeah. If you're a big company and if you always deliver on time, which Frog God does, then and you need to do more than 4 or 5 Kickstarters a year, you got to do something, right?
Right.
Well, that's part of it. And part of it's also, honestly, we're about to test it. We haven't tested it in 6 years, but we're about to do like regular pre-orders. I'm going to bet good money they don't do as well as Indiegogo does, because what these sites do is they are basically pre-order for. Look, they're really for anybody. They're pre-order. They're funding projects, but that's what pre-orders have done in the past for video games, for movies, you name it, right? It's cash up front for a product delivered soon.
Well, smaller down like my scale and beneath, it's a combination of a marketing platform and crowdsourcing.
100%. I think you're absolutely correct. Exactly. That is where people will go to find you, because they will more likely go there than to your website.
Sure. I also look at it as an additional revenue stream, because when you're doing a pre-order from your own website, you're basically saying that you're dependent upon the people who visit your website. When you have your crowdfunding source like Kickstarter or even Indiegogo, you have that. It's almost like you have that separate revenue stream for your small business. So you have your own website from which you sell stuff. You have your crowdfunding platform from which you sell stuff. And then maybe you have Drive-Through RPG through which you sell stuff. And then maybe you have conventions from which you sell stuff. So you have these different revenue streams that are helping to support your small business. So I sometimes worry about, what if Kickstarter imploded one day? What if they, what if they got too greedy? Okay. And they decided, we're going to double our take now. And
we're not doing games anymore. That won't happen that way, but they could easily say we're not doing role-playing games anymore. There's too many troubles,
anything.
Too many angry people, too many stuff not delivering. Right.
Okay, so hold on. You guys are cannon firing tons of great info.
Sorry.
For us, maybe, but not for somebody who wants to get into this and figure it out.
So we need to start defining some terms for people, because we have done this a number of times. First of all, crowdfunding is when you put a project up, and we're gonna focus on Kickstarter, because that's gonna be
where you go first.
The first one that most people are gonna try out. So crowdfunding is when you put your project up. Like we'll pick one at total random. How about Hyperborea?
Borea. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
choice.
we're gonna discuss that. So what you do is you present your plan of the product that you want to create. And you can see right here, right on the right side of the screen, it says $146,682 pledged of $20,000 goal. So what the deal is a creator sets a minimum goal at which point they will be able to create the baseline product that they are pitching. So a lot has been made of this over the years, what Kickstarter is and what it is not. Um, I think
It is not
people,
an online store.
They tell me
right,
that now.
right. So it is not an online store in the regard that you don't automatically get this product by giving your hard-earned dollars. If the product does not fund, if the product does not fund, you are not charged. And,
Correct.
and that is a significant difference
Then Indiegogo.
between Kickstarter and Indiegogo. In Indiegogo, when you give your money, you have given your money. In Kickstarter, you put a placeholder on your credit card or whatever funding source you're using. And if, as you will see down there where it says 5 days to go, there is a length of time that you are trying to gather money.
Just 2 weeks, but
This can be equated to venture capitalist ideas and all of that I'm not going to get into because it's not relevant to what we're talking about in the whole 48 minutes that we have left.
I appreciate the reminder. That means I've got 5 days to go to make sure the money's in my checking account for my pledge.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm serious because I have a huge old bid over there.
So that does happen. If you bid and you do not have money in your
Pledge,
funding source, you screw the backer or you screw the creator. Because then you have to chase down this money and all of that stuff, and that happens. There
Sure. Can I interject something though?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. That's why you're here,
it's
sexy beast.
sure. It's not as black and white as that. So if for whatever reason, say you were the victim of credit card fraud and you forgot to change your Visa with Kickstarter, and so the campaign comes to an end and Kickstarter goes to charge your Visa and it bounces. They spend, I think, Zach, do you know, I think it's
2
up
weeks.
to 3
It's
days, 2 weeks.
I think it's
they
2 weeks. They
attempt
do
to
it. The-
collect
Yeah,
it.
do the
they'll,
first
they'll send
warning,
you email
the
reminders.
pre-warning,
It's
and then
happened to
Right.
me.
drop. Yeah.
So they'll send you email reminders for up to 2 weeks, giving you the chance to, use a different card or whatever, or resolve what's going on with your current card. Then you actually have, if you do use BackerKit will resume that effort and allow you to continue to attempt to collect these funds from. Now, some people are just gonna, it's just never going to work out for them for whatever reason, what's going on in their lives, which is completely understandable. We're talking about a game here, and some people run into some real life situations, right? But for other people, they just space it out. They were busy. They went on vacation.
Right.
They, stuff's going on, or they have a million emails and they got buried and they didn't realize it. And they're thankful. They come back and say, "Oh man, I gladly, resolve this issue so I can get the stuff that I pledged for."
We have backers come back years later. I had someone come back whispering about him almost 6 years after the fact, looking to see if they can get one, which I hadn't had one in years. But people do forget, or they do remember suddenly years later, and they're almost always super nice.
Yeah.
Look, we keep extras. Like after we sell out our web store of Kickstarters, we keep extras around for when that pops up, because it's frustrating. And you're right. And what Skeeter said is absolutely correct too, is that all this money comes to you, but there's still a risk. You see that dollar sign, that's not what you get from Kickstarter, but
No.
they earn their money.
We're gonna dip toes into that pool in just a second. But the person who set up this background was just wicked smart, because on there on that little blurb, it says Kickstarter connects creators with backers to fund projects. So there is a search function in Kickstarter that allows you to type in things as innocuous as RPG. As if you have watched Goddammit, Zach, at any time in the past when we did our Kickstarter roundups to give people some information, you can just randomly scan for what's an RPG project that's trying to be funded. And it doesn't have to be a book. Reaper Miniatures is famous for their huge Kickstarters for their Bones lines.
It's robbery. It's just highway robbery. What they do is they've me addicted to bones, and they make keep paying them. That's the problem with Reaper, man.
Egg Gambry at the In World does a weekly column too that's really good about spotlighting what's new and hot.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
Egg is great about that. But what I want to bring everybody's attention to is the blurb right in the middle of the Kickstarter pink banner. Rewards aren't guaranteed, but creators must regularly update backers. Sometimes, as Jeff was saying, life goes sideways and people get delayed. And very rarely, but it makes a big splash in the community, some creators just take your money and leave. And we know some very famous examples of that.
Oh yeah.
And
well, you got to be sure and present it statistically accurately. I mean, the way on the outliner end of the continuum are the grifters and the actual crooks. Then there's a much bigger slice that's just people with good intentions who couldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been victimized. We all have.
A kid went into the hospital or something,
Sure.
The amount of people who could have predicted in 2020 there was going to be a virus that basically crippled the world. You should go to Vegas if you had predicted that. I mean, some people did.
I bet the Simpsons did.
I'm sure.
I bet you're right.
But so since we're talking about this, I'm just going to scan through this completely random RPG book Kickstarter that I picked from.
It's amazing that came up right away.
It's not based on anything in particular. Look at that.
Disclaimer, many of us present have already pledged for this.
Yes.
So
there are things I want to comment on, but they are totally irrelevant to this show. So afterwards, I'll comment to Jeff. But this looks really nice, Jeff.
So yeah, so there's some things about Kickstarter that work out great. So this right here in the banner, you can't see it because my mouse doesn't show up in the projection. This is a video. So some creators put videos to showcase their products. Some people do not.
If this is your first Kickstarter or you're just starting out as a small independent publisher, that's not you.
Yeah, that you don't necessarily have to do that. I've done 3 Kickstarters, and some of mine had videos, some of them didn't. And when you hear the term video, it doesn't have to be a, Marvel Cinematic Universe level video. I literally had a PowerPoint presentation that was just on slideshow, and that's what I did for my video.
Sure. I used iMovie on that one.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be Zack Snyder because, Jesus, nobody wants to watch a 4-hour Kickstarter video.
I mean, if you happen to be some kind of lunatic with video editing chops like Tom Tullis, go for it, because Tom's videos are beautiful.
And if you are, a buddy in the know, like our friend Levi Combs, who has little black and white movies that play for his Kickstarters, it's craziness. But
yeah,
that is where you can really kind of set your own tone for it.
Sure.
It's a great idea. This creator put, pictures of the books on there, so you can get a mock-up. Mr. Jim Wampler does some fantastic mock-ups in his Kickstarters of books that you would think, oh, holy shit, he's already got the books. No, he doesn't.
But it
It's
seems a lot.
magic.
If you see what you're actually going to get, or what
Right.
you know, the PDF equivalent.
Yeah, you want to show what you're pledging for.
Yeah, and that's something that you can look up mock-up in Photoshop on the internet, and you can find out enough to know if you need to hire somebody you know how to do it. But it's a good idea. Hey, good art.
And show the art, and isn't that glorious?
One of the great things about Jeff's books and the art is the art really shows off what the setting feels like. I mean, you look at it initially, you're like, oh, Conan, okay. But look at the background. There's all these wispy faces, and there's just layers to everything in the game, in the art. I always ask Jeff, man, who was the artist that did so and so? And he kind of hedges and doesn't tell me because he can.
That's not true.
He can taste that I'm like, I need to get a hold of this guy.
No,
that is true. Jeff won't tell anybody the good stuff he's got because he wants to keep it from the rest of us. No, that's not true at all. Actually,
one of the things about Hyperborea is this is 26 character classes. This is only 10% of the character classes you can play in this game. I'm joking. There's a lot.
No, I've been an admirer of Jeff's design and layout for a long time because he's got the eye. And I'm not at all prejudiced by knowing that we're both Jack Kirby fans.
That's correct.
Yeah. And this is from Diogo.
Yes.
Because of some of the stuff that I saw in Jeff's books, I reached out to Diogo and got some art done for my monster book.
Oh,
Codex.
awesome.
So, yeah, it really, that's one of the good things that we talk about in the small publisher seminar is don't be afraid to ask other small publishers.
Yeah.
Who they're using for art, other things that you can't do on your own.
Well, when you're brand new and you're like, I've got an idea. I want to do some kind of small game publishing. I want to do a Kickstarter. I mean, if you're starting from zero, you don't know anything. Well, fun fact, none of us came out of the chute knowing how to do any of this. We learned a lot of hard lessons on our own and then eventually learned to network amongst ourselves and trade information and expertise.
Yeah, so
there's too highfalutin. You know what I mean?
Well, the ability to do this yourself is like pretty new in terms of being able one person being able to do from beginning to end and supply a product to somebody, and things like Kickstarter and small networks of people that you meet with online communities makes that difference a big deal. And so
I'm just
more important than ever because of how much you can do is more important than ever. You ask questions because you can do yourself some real damage if you don't know.
If you're just starting out, the number one advice I have is try and know what you don't know that you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know when you don't know it. So how do you figure that out? Well, you go find people that are doing successfully what you already aspire to do and go chat them up and find out.
And I'm happy to answer. Actually, I get after we've been doing this for 2 years now, Skeeter.
What, this show?
No, well, these kind of small publisher seminar.
Small publisher. Yeah, I think it's been like 2 years.
You did that for me, Zach, years ago. You saved my ass. I went as soon as the internet happened. I left graphic design and layout and went straight to web work and hadn't touched a graphic design layout program in over a decade. But I knew you knew InDesign, and you got me all the way through the hump until I'm back in the sling now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that being the point, I do think that I answer questions as often as I can because I want more publishers to be published. I really do. I mean,
yeah.
So now we're going to go through this Kickstarter. That was kind of just the take a look at it. We're going to go through this because there are some things that people need to specifically understand about Kickstarters.
Sure.
So over here on the right, oh my God, Jeff, this is you. This is your Kickstarter.
Whoa.
I know.
Wow.
Everybody was so taken in by my acting.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, as with any sales pitch or anything, is make things visually appealing, something that's going to grab your eye. Obviously, mock-ups of books, like we said, is really going to help you get a feel for what you are pledging your money for. Kickstarter, also over here on the right, it gives you pledge levels. So you tell when you're doing your crowdfunding, you are asking people to give you money at these different pledge levels, and then you explain what they're going to get. So typically, you can pledge $1 just to throw some money at a creator that you care about.
A dollar also does another thing too. Once you put that dollar in, you become eligible to receive all the updates from the project that you otherwise wouldn't. So
Exactly.
it's
And also
if you're
you can comment.
semi-interested, it's a
Especially the
You can do
48
comments.
hours until funding closes email.
Right.
yes.
Now, that can also be done with the remind me button right here that I am. Oh, look, my cursor. I can see it. Okay. So, right here is a remind me. You can hit that, and then I'm not logged in, so it won't do it. But this will give you a notification 48 hours before the project ends that it's like, hey, get off your ass, pledge some money. Um, doing the $1 pledge also gives you some creators do updates that only backers get that information. The $1 pledge allows you to get updates, and hopefully we'll have enough time to get to updates.
Or even just ask questions in the comments.
Right.
Comment.
You can comment, you get the information. So even by pledging $1, you are connected to the project. And then there's the different pledges. Typically, a low dollar pledge is going to be PDFs only. All the people years ago who said PDFs would never catch on in RPGs are now, the biggest
Are running
owners
companies.
are running companies that are PDF only. So, but this is typically a lower dollar way to get the content.
Right.
It's digital only. Maybe you're in a place where you don't have the space for books, or you're in a more remote location. I mean, who knows?
You're
So,
overseas and you don't want to pay the
um,
shipping.
I I have backed a lot of new publishers that I didn't know that much about at the PDF level, and I have a huge library of PDFs. Uh, as the pledges get more expensive, you get more stuff. This is for a physical module and the PDF, so that gets
And
you
I
know
want to interject real quick as a creator. Setting those up is the way you figure out whether or not you can afford to do a project. That is your financial planning tool because you have to put in each item everybody gets, and you get a good matrix of these are my deliverables. And if you can go through then cost them,
well.
that's going to force you to put everything you're giving out there. So that's a great tool.
Well, that's step one, but you better be spreadsheeting those production costs.
Exactly.
Well, no, absolutely.
I was
This is
just
the
gonna
first time
say,
when the rubber hits the road, this is the first time you see it. You got to put it in. If you're a brand new
Exactly.
project, this is where you finally, I can't afford this. You should, this is the last stop before you hit
yeah,
launch.
this
Tell you
this
that.
is the last gate. Like if you start putting stuff on here and you figure out what that's going to cost you, and you're like, oh my god, for these four, doing the work on these PDFs, if if I don't if I don't make my money back by that level of pledge, I have a problem. So, and once you are setting up a Kickstarter, which we are not going to go into because that can take a couple of days to get done.
And that's just explaining how to.
Yeah, that's just typing in your information, and then you got to get an approval, and then if you're like me and somehow you put like a space bar in somewhere and it's not the exact count of of text, you get all screwed up. So there are some pitfalls, but generally it's user error, and for the most part, it's fairly easy to get through.
Sure. Here's the thing, though, for new and experienced Kickstarter users, you can get a preview link that you share with only your friends, your peers, and say, "Hey, I've been looking at this thing for the last 3 or 4 days now, and I keep finding errors, and I don't
If
know
you
if
don't
I'm
have,
missing
yeah,
something. I
if you
need
don't
an
have
extra
it,
set
Read
of
your
eyes."
brother Jeff. My copy editor was feeding me changes where the online editor had taken a curved apostrophe and made it a flat one, and I'm switching them
Hmm.
back
Yeah, I
That may
mean,
be a formatting thing with Kickstarter too. I'm
because
not
I
even
love it.
sure.
It's just online WYSIWYG editor, but I love
Oh,
my copy
okay.
editor.
for
Yeah.
me, I know all three of my Kickstarters. I sent it out to a number of people and just said like, "Hey, what do you think?" I mean, not even really looking for a copy edit, just like a visually,
Flow. Yeah, the
how does
content
this
flow.
look? And I've
Sure.
had some. I've run the spectrum of, man, that looks pretty good, and why are you even doing this?
I think
So,
it's important to remember too that you get somebody who's like somewhat experienced to look at, but also have somebody who's never seen a Kickstarter page look at it,
exactly.
because people who've never seen one will find the errors that you just don't see anymore. Like, you're missing 2 pledge levels here. Things you assume you're putting in, or things this is what it's for, and there's no picture of that, but there's a picture of everything else, because you know what you're given, and you're surrounded by it for months before you even get to the point where you put it into the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by this stuff without someone. I recommend parents. They're useful boomers, right? But anybody actually who's interested in your success but doesn't really know much about a hobby is really useful. And just because their time is really valuable, it's worth buying them drinks to do a real good look at it.
Sure.
This is part of a larger. This is an important part of a larger issue that I'm big on, and I'll talk about it in terms of just writing and editing. You absolutely need to get an editor on your stuff. I mean, maybe Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe didn't need editors, but the rest of us are not Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe. So another set of eyes on your stuff editing
Right.
it, because you can't do it. You're the one who wrote it. So same thing with the Kickstarter. It's all your great ideas and your organization, your stuff, and you get blind to it quick.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have missing words, but your brain is formulating that word because you have this sort of internal expectation of what you're presenting. And
You're missing words. I said missing pledge levels. You're just trying to still me up.
Well, no, that'll happen too. You're
true.
like, okay, hey, dude, I looked at this, and you've got a PDF pledge only and a print and PDF pledge. But what if and then 2 more books? Well, what if somebody who only pledged for the PDF wants to add on the other
Right.
PDFs that are built into their pledges? You're like, oh, I forgot
Right.
about that.
So
Right.
that's an excellent point. Is the pledges, these pledge levels, and I tried to do this one time. You cannot get all of the combinations that that is going to satisfy every single customer. There is a
Right.
customer that will want to
Oh,
do
I
some
know.
kind of combination that you have not, unless you're doing 1 or 2 items. There
Even
is a
then.
combination that somebody will come up with that is like, you can't, if you create a pledge level, if you have multiple copies, we'll take Jim with Scientific Barbarian. If he were to do a pledge and say, hey, you can get a copy of issue 1, 2, and 3, as well as the current one I'm going to do, issue 4. You can get the whole thing. Somebody will come to you and say, well, I already got number 2, so can I get
1,
a
3, and
pledge
4.
level of 1, 3, and 4?
Right.
How do I
Yeah.
do that? And you're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can do that through BackerKit after, because you can sort of
if
customize your
if you
individual
are
add-ons.
if you are using BackerKit, and for some small Kickstarters, maybe BackerKit doesn't make sense for you.
I don't think
Sure.
it makes sense for a lot of small Kickstarters like Jeff.
Well, it's an extra bite, and Kickstarter did what most companies do when somebody hops on board with third-party stuff. They've incorporated a lot of that into Kickstarter now. So
And they're
there's
doing more, because I've taken surveys from Kickstarter.
So-
They're going to include more of that stuff. So just-
what that brings, what I'm trying to make my point as I'm thinking about it, allow add-ons for your pledge levels. So that way you can make your pledge levels more basic. So you can have you can almost get to the point where it is a physical product plus PDF. And then you can put the impetus on the customer, which some people don't like to do, that they have to tell you what physical product is going to go in that pledge level. For example, in the case we used with Jim, if he had you get one physical book and one PDF, you can send out a survey later that has a field. You can even put drop downs in there. So the customer can select, okay, I want book number 3, but I want PDF number 1.
Well, that's good to have as a backup, but you need to export the backer report and use that as your main guide to who
That's
gets
what
what
he's saying.
book.
He's saying he's using
Using
the tools in Kickstarter.
It's
Yes,
just good
that's
to
all in
have
the
a
export.
backup.
Yeah.
With that like you suggested, that non-optional survey question. Okay, you pledged extra money. What was it for? Tell me.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely have to do that. But allowing people to add on, maybe somebody is pledging for their game, but they have a cousin in Saskatoon who might also like this, and their birthday is coming up. Always give somebody the option to buy a book either specifically for another gamer or on the off chance you may need to give it to another gamer or you want to turn somebody into a gamer. If people want to spend their money, give them the opportunity to spend their money supporting you.
As long as in the plan of what you're creating is deliverables. Don't never ever create a deliverable during the middle of a Kickstarter project ever. Always have a plan of what you're going to make and how you're going to make it.
Nobody does that.
Nobody ever does that.
You can
unless
get a
you're
lot of
an experienced pro and know what you're doing, stretch goals are a bad idea.
Right.
Because the way every project on earth way outside of gaming, try and put up a skyscraper, the last 10 or 15% of that project is going to go to hell and be the hardest. And every time you add a stretch goal, you've just added something new to the last 10 or 15% of your project.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I don't even remember.
You pretty much said what I was thinking.
Yeah. Project creep. Project creep will happen and will crush your Kickstarter and potentially your financial well-being if you allow the product that you are creating to get outside of your financial parameters, which is a lot of bullshit speak for exactly what Jim said. And what Zach said, don't add stretch goals that are going to be financially crippling, because not only are you spending the money on the product, you have to multiply that by the amount of pledgers who may decide, oh, wow, this is a great deal. So everybody gets on board, and suddenly that extra $10 you're spending per book or per pledge is multiplied by 700 or 1,000 or 3,000.
It gets really quick because I'll use an example as cards. Okay. I'm going to give a card for a stretch goal. A card, according to Drive Through RPG at high volume, is 6 cents, 6.5 cents, or whatever it was before they changed it this month. And well, that's only 6.5 cents. I can add that to the total price of the package. Well, you also have to add the price of the layout for other cards you make. You have to add the price for the shipping to you before you can organize them and put them out. You have to organize the fact that if you do more than 10 cards, you're going to package 20 cents an extra per 10 card package. I mean, there are costs all along that if you're
however many backers you have times the amount of time it takes you to pick that card up and stick it in the envelope.
No, absolutely. It gets all the way to that. And how valuable is that? We chose to do that this time because we wanted to have physical stretch goals that were interesting and different. They were only available on Kickstarter. That was important to us. We hadn't done it in a while. That was a huge deliberation amongst 8 people. And of the 3 decision makers, it was a giant deliberation for 3 weeks because it could potentially be that serious for what we're talking about is, less than probably $3 in stuff, like per unit times hopefully as many as Jeff has. Everybody, if you love Fall Guy games, let's beat Jeff Talanian. No, but times that many backers, times all the administration costs. And like Jim said, it was important enough to our warehouse people in Paulsbo that I am shipping those separately from the actual pledges because I can organize those in a way I understand based on the data that, our warehouse isn't set up for. Right. So anyway, so that's what I mean. Plan those. Okay.
This has actually been a perfect segue, and I'm sorry I'm cutting Zach short, but
no, good, please.
One thing about Kickstarter that I want everyone to discuss, and we give as much information about as we can, is shipping. Because nothing sinks at Kickstarter faster than shipping costs and what can go wrong with shipping. And I'll start it off. If you are a creator making an RPG book and you decide you're going to have a stretch goal, and your stretch goal happens to include a
Yes.
button, a pencil, or a fancy dice, fancy six-sided dice with, say, your company logo on it.
I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah,
And
no, me too.
and
Me too.
and you decide, oh man, this to have this little cool thing, it's like an extra dime, no problem. Well, where that becomes a problem is now you cannot ship that media mail.
These are the lessons and mistakes we made, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
You automatically go to the lowest priced, expensive way to ship a book, which can double or triple your postage cost.
Right.
That may
That you
not
may have already
I-
collected
that
depending
may
on your
not
method.
that may not equate to a big deal in your head right off the bat, but if
Or not fit into the box you already ordered 500 of.
Yeah.
right, that all matters. If you are going to use, I'll use the example of somebody who missized their product and ordered shipping material that was slightly too small.
Oh, I've done that.
Who would this clever person be?
Oh, that would
Okay.
be the shipping geniuses at SGP.
No, I've done that. I did that with my second module. These looked like they worked. They claim they work for 8.5 by 11-inch paper. They're like 2 papers, not a book.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
literally things that you don't know. You don't know the lingo because everything's got lingo. Shipping has its own set of lingo that it seems to make sense on the outside, but when you actually learn what they're trying to tell you, it's always a little more complicated and it affects your pocket line. It never goes your way. The more you
Right.
learn, you never feel richer or like I've explored the system. You just realize how much more it costs you all the time the more you learn. So that's why
Seriously,
you
if anybody out there needs 500 or 600 6x9 rigid mailers, call me.
There is one workaround that I have found in the sort of example that you laid out, Skeeter. It's more time consuming, and I've had people ask me why I do this particular thing. But say I do T-shirts with a campaign, can't send them media mail, right? So I will send a T-shirt separately first class. So I'll have people say, well, why didn't you send them together? Well, when I weighed them out, the media mail package with the T-shirt, the only way that I could go from there is priority mail. The one priority mail box costs $4 or $5 more than it would cost to have that one media mail package and then a T-shirt and a padded envelope.
No, it's the same way for us.
So yeah. So there are little workarounds. You can probably, do that with your dice and pencil example that you did, but it's more time consuming and you have to factor that in. You have to order those envelopes and
Right.
You don't always like to do 200 orders of packages till you do 200 orders of packages. It seems like it's not that big of a deal, but it actually winds up being. It's just a huge.
But,
If you've done it, you don't know.
Jeff's point actually makes my point because by having that little dice or pencil or button, you now have an entirely different shipping process for that
ripple
one
effect.
object. Yes.
Yep.
And if you are a small publisher, which that is who we're talking to, a lot of times it's you or maybe you and your significant other or friends, or if you have
child labor.
Right.
Over here.
If you are fortunate enough to have little labor, it may not be that big of a deal. But as Zach has pointed out, when you're Frog God game size and you have a warehouse and people need to work there and be compensated for their time, you are obligated to include those costs. People aren't going to do it for free. And if that is not something that you think about when all of the sudden you're at 0 hour and you got to figure out how to ship 500 books and 500 pencils and it's you, that's a lot of labels.
Right.
That's
aren't cheap either.
That is a lot of postage. That is a lot of paper cuts, stuffing things into envelopes or
toner cartridge,
and things like account that allows you to actually import addresses to print out labels on stamps.com using ShipStation with stamps. That costs money too. That's not the hey, welcome to stamps.com for $5 a month. No, it's the more expensive business account.
We're at $17.99, I think.
Yeah, and from where you would get it, because we use both. But and the thing about it is, you don't think about those things. I mean, you could totally handwrite them, but you can't really. I mean, it doesn't work that way like it used to.
It all adds up. So go ahead.
So very specifically, I do not use stamps.com. I did. I had some fiascos, and I closed the account and do not do it. Fortunately, the last Kickstarter I did had 200 plus pledges. Maybe 30% were PDFs, so not a big deal. But 100, 150, whatever packages, I did through PayPal. And it was a matter of copying the address and pasting it into PayPal and doing it that way. and I'll tell you, that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I'm already to scale where that would not work for me.
Yeah, see, I'm still small enough that I could do 20, 30, 40 labels in a day, and then I was toast. I was done. I'm like, this is bullshit, but now, and this is the big thing with Kickstarter, once you've taken money from people, you are obligated to get off your ass and do the hard work.
Yeah, you'll never do a second project.
That with everybody in the 3 other buddies I have in this panel right now, everybody does the hard work. Once they take the money, they get stuff done. Except for Zach. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, I have people.
Zach has people. He's.
Let me tell you how well that works sometimes.
I am my people.
No, and I for a lot of times I am. I mean, you make fun, but I do all the Indiegogo shipping here in Arizona because it's just easier because we print here, right? And so I know what it's like. I feel exactly like everybody who's going to do one small book adventure every 3 weeks when I ship them out for Indiegogo. But you know what? I can tell you from experience, one book in an envelope with the stuff that makes it nice and packaged well, like a Mylar sleeve and a backing board, those things. Anything else you add to those, it makes the time take way longer. Like even ones that have 2 different module choices, like in one shipping package, takes longer. So you have to account for all that. When you make some promises about shipping and delivery, if you have 300 people and you have one guy or one woman who's going to totally do it, hire her for sure, because she's going to get it done faster. But in my experience, no, but in all honesty, you have to give them, say, a month. You got to tell people realistically, because people start to get them. They post them on the internet and they're like, where's mine? And that's a reasonable question. If you don't set those expectations for backers, or sell them to somebody who didn't back it before they get their copy. Yeah, they supported it.
Yeah, it's also because we live in the age of Amazon. About 2 weeks ago, I had someone place an order on my website, and this guy, he placed an order in the early in the morning. It was about 5 a.m. my time, and like I want to say about 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. he emailed to ask me why he didn't get a shipping label yet.
No, we get that too.
And so I had to explain to him, well, this is a small family run business. And if you checked on your order when you were placing the order, we typically ship on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so, your order will be shipping tomorrow, because this was I think it was on a Monday when it happened. And of course they usually, they're usually nice about it, but in the understanding, but the expectation
I get my shipment in 2 days. That's
right.
It's not because Jeff went out and said I would get your package in 2 days. It's because I order cornflakes on Amazon and they come in 2 days. I just
right. I mean,
if I could get you your book from me in 24 hours, I would be on some rocket going to orbit too.
Yeah,
So
I had a thing a few weeks ago. I placed an, I don't remember what it was for. It may have been something like toilet paper or something for all I know, but I placed an order with Amazon and it was the same day it arrived at my house. Blew my mind.
Yeah, that's typical.
That will happen with Frog God Games. Maybe not with Northwind.
No.
Frog God Games, computer delivers it.
So one of the questions is specifically about postage costs. And I'm not going to get into that too much because it varies wildly on where you're at, where you're sending it,
USPS postage calculator.
what type of that. Yes, the USPS has all the tools on the site. You will get, if not right on, you will get extremely close enough for you to have an accurate estimate.
And be comfortable for the next 7 days. That's going to be how much it costs.
Right.
Because
Prices.
They change all the time.
Prices
They're going up on
fluctuate.
August 30th.
Yep.
Yay.
But one of the questions is exactly media mail for paper books is less than half of what the next higher item costs.
It's like $269 to ship versus like $9. I mean, it really is a lot.
So
and
the example I'm going to use is for my Kickstarter, which I was shipping out in June. Got all my shipping done, or so I thought. USPS decided for two of my customers, they were not going to deliver the books. They shipped out. I had tracking numbers. I could look up the tracking numbers, and they just weren't there. So when the customers messaged me, I'm just like, okay, I'll look into it. I sat and stewed on that for probably 3 hours, and I said, nope, I'm just going to ship you out another book. If the stuff shows up, give it to somebody, have a play copy and a shelf copy, whatever.
Yeah.
I got 2 books by accident. Enjoy them. Good.
Right. Yeah, it's more painful if they're in France, though.
This is an issue that everybody here deals with, and that's when you're at and Zach did when he was doing Lesser Gnome, is when you're operating at our scale, you're wearing multiple hats, and you've got to remember which hat you have on when, because on the one hand, there's this industry standard of there's going to be 2 or 3% failure with United States Postal Service on delivery. So you already know in advance 2 or 3% of your books will never get there, and you're going to have to replace them, and it's no big deal. Just send out a new one. But on the other hand, when it's the customer messaging you, that's his book, and you got to fix that stuff.
Yeah, you got to get on that. It is worth so much more to have a happy customer than whatever the price it's going to be for extra postage. But the story continues, because after I sent the next package, on one of the orders I screwed up and sent the wrong book. That whole different story. The people got their books, and it was great. I got one of the books back that was tagged for insufficient postage, which was inaccurate. But it looked like a truck drove over it. The exterior packaging was destroyed. The interior packaging was mangled. I was amazed. So the post office will do everything in their power to treat your mail like a football. For those of you who prefer sports,
fragile is a challenge. The sticker fragile, that's a challenge. That's not a warning.
In both cases, when the books were extracted from the damaged packaging, they were flawless, which I cannot tell you how important it is to wrap your books well, package them like a gorilla is going to beat them with a Samsonite luggage. And if you're old enough to remember that, thank you for being an old school player.
Wow. That is a reference that I haven't.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Name I have not heard in a long time.
But you also have to pay for that. I mean, that
John Hirschberger at Black Blade Publishing is the king of the planet for this, because when that dude ships you something, it's going to take you 30 minutes to get it out of the way he's
written. That's no lie. And
it could survive a nuclear bomb.
No, it would. John Hirschberger is that kind of guy, though.
You know, But, and again, this is another thing you have to consider for your Kickstarter is your shipping costs. And some of the people in here are smart enough to get their shipping after Kickstarter has closed because you don't want Kickstarter taking some of your money for your shipping costs. I know at least one of the people is not smart enough to do that, but we'll be doing that next time. But that increases your costs because you're going to have your cardboard sleeve of whatever type. You're going to have your bubble wrap. You're going to have your tape. You're going to have your Mylar sleeve that goes on the outside of it so it's not sitting on somebody's porch and soaking wet in a hurricane condition. Because you have
And
to
you're going to have a
replace
list
that
of what
book.
those cost, because that will tell you what your actual shipping fee is, because it's not just what post office quotes you, it's what it takes to actually get that package together, including labor.
Yes.
So that's when you see shipping and handling. Handling is a real thing. When you do it yourself, you recognize why you get charged that fee.
So yeah, when you see a Kickstarter or on a website where shipping is, $9, and when you get it, it says on there, oh, this was, $3.50. Why did I have to pay $9 for shipping costs? It's like, because your book arrived in good condition. It was wrapped up. Somebody who actually cared about you getting the book was paid to ship it, and all of that costs.
Right. We get pallets of boxes, and that stuff isn't cheap. We used to go through, what's the big one there in Philadelphia?
Uline?
Uline?
Yeah, Uline. We used to go through Uline, but the shipping fees for their pallets of boxes became so expensive that we now go through the boxery, which is a little bit more reasonable. But
we have a local vendor in Phoenix we use, but yeah, I know what you mean, because you're talking thousands of boxes, and even then they aren't cheap. You think that you think the price goes down a lot, but shipping boxes don't. You can order 10,000, and you're not saving that much money, would you think it would be? So,
yeah, and you need to get different sizes, and
if
then you get your bubble wrap.
If you over order on your shipping for a specific, like if you're gonna do a 6x9 book and you get 6x9 shipping folders and you can't fit your product in there, then you're sitting on a box of 6x9 shipping boxes you can't get rid of.
And
no one listening.
Warehousing costs are cost too, even at your house.
Here's a pro tip I learned. You can do a beautiful printed graphic custom shipping container, and that's great, but don't ever make one with a giant demon skull on one side, because then your USPS failure rate suddenly jumps to 5 or 6% in the Midwest.
Okay, so we are about at the witching hour, so I'm going to say, Jeff Talanian, what would you like to leave the fans with?
So, I mean, we're talking, as far as leaving the fans with our Kickstarter advice for tonight,
or
the topic.
Anything. It could be life advice.
Well, he doesn't give life advice.
No. So I would say don't do a box set. No, I'm just kidding.
For real? Don't.
No. So my biggest advice for starting a Kickstarter is, especially on the early goings, and even, I've done 10 of them myself now. I'd say one of the most important things is to make sure that your project is fully developed or very close to being done fully developed. Do not ask for people's money off your dream or idea before you actually have started to do the development work into this or the hiring of it. What I typically like to do when I'm starting a project, I like to make sure that the writing is completely done. The editing, maybe not. The editing may be in process. I like to have my cover art in. I think cover art is always very important to selling your project. It is the face of your project, right? So you should have your cover art in. You shouldn't launch a project and say, the cover is coming. I don't think that's a good look. Interior art, I think it would be great if you can have all of it done, but if it's mostly done, I think that you're well underway to having, a fully fleshed out project. But my point being is if you run a Kickstarter and you suddenly find yourself successful, and and it's gone well beyond what you imagined it could do. And now you have this great responsibility of actually making this thing that you've taken money for. You put yourself in a bad position. You put yourself in a position for failure. So my advice is always to get as much done early on as you possibly can before you ask for people's hard-earned money.
Mr. Jim Wampler.
I think we covered it, especially what Jeff just said. So I'm just going to ask you to pull up the notification page for my Kickstarter, that next Kickstarter that launches tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everybody can go click on Scientific Barbarian #4 and our hardback 2021 annual that reprints the first 4 issues with a little bonus content.
Awesome. I'll be there.
Because
we've
delivered and
I should have mentioned that I have
that.
I didn't mention that my Kickstarter is just about to end, so it's
I usually suck at that part myself, but
yeah, shameless self-promotion. I should have mentioned that, we are in the final 4 or 5 days for the 3rd edition of the Hyperborea game, so you can find it by searching for Hyperborea 3E.
Go sink money into that one, and then just use your Taco Bell money to get mine.
No,
Jim,
get Scientific Barbarian as well.
I just sent it to you. Look at your Facebook messages.
Oh, okay. Hold, please. I have too many windows open because Zach doesn't do anything.
That's a pro tip: selfless and shameless self-promotion.
Yes.
Right.
That didn't make sense. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean, because I got accused on a website one time of being somebody you never heard of, whose only thing he's ever done is self-promotion. When I was doing Whisper and Venom, I got an Emmy nomination. That was how I was described to the public. And it was actually totally awesome, and it was good, and it was true. There it is.
All the beautiful stuff you just saw on Jeff's Kickstarter, you'll see that on this page tomorrow. If you click that big green button, you'll know the second it goes live.
Launching tomorrow. All right,
nice.
Zach, take us home.
Well, God damn it, we'll have to do this again, because honestly, there's a lot of good advice. And one thing Skeeter did say is we tended to go really fast and said a lot of great stuff that was probably could get their own shows just by mention. But come back and watch it again. I think Skeeter will organize it because he likes putting it up without any help from me, as we just said. I heard it. Everybody else heard it too.
Yes, I love to work hard for Zach.
Everybody does. That's next.
We're 2 minutes over, but it was valuable information. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Thank you very much.
Both done great Kickstarters. Zach, you have a history with Necromancer games and Frog God games of always delivering, so good job. I'm Skeeter Green. That's Zach Glazer.
I'm Goddammit, Zach.
We'll see you later. Thank you for